I suspect that if you go into charismatic churches today, though, Gail, they'd expect the angels to bow to them. And that's not even sounding arrogant. I think that's literally how they think. Um, Maybe this is a good time to tell you, Jen Johnson. Nanya and I were talking about this other day. I think it's Bill Johnson from Bethel's daughter-in-law, or I don't know, I'm not 100% sure. There's a clip doing the rounds of her teaching, and she says, number one of the things she says, she thinks we take God too seriously. And then this is her teaching at Bethel, right? Where we know hundreds of thousands, if not millions, by this point, of people have gone there to learn about supernatural. I mean, that's literally what they are famous for. Do you know what she said? She says two things. She suspects that the angels around God's throne, we've just learned about who they are and how powerful and frightful they are. They text each other. This is her, literally what she said. And that's not even the worst part. She says she probably thinks they also have farting competitions. I kid you not. That's what she said. So when we talk like ignorance, even heresy effectively, mixing with the arrogance, Bethel displays that for us on a daily basis. And it's quite sadly ironic that they are the most famous Christian ministry on the planet right now, which tells you a lot in itself. Now, here's a quote from the life of Adam and Eve. It is extra biblical, but I'm going to prove to you in maybe 2 weeks' time. Maybe that's where we're going to have to go in 2 weeks' time, is me proving that I'm telling you, you've got to take extra biblical literature more serious than you do. And I'll show you why in the session before we end too. It will be difficult to accept, but just for interest's sake, yes, part of the text, and it says, I'm not saying this is absolutely true, but just imagine with me. um, Adam asks to get some stuff out of the garden before they leave so that they can actually make something outside of the garden. And the angels actually interact and help him with this, which is not as crazy as it might sound. So yeah, it says, and God ordered Adam to go, come that he might take aromatic fragrances out of paradise for his sustenance. When the angels allowed him, watch that, he gathered four kinds: crocus, nard, reed, and cinnamon, and other seeds for his food, and he took those and went out of paradise. And so he came to be on the earth. Now, the point here is, I'm not going to try and defend it or say it's true. The point is to show you that the thinking in intertestamental period, or let's call it, what I want to call it, uh, first century literature. I've got to find a way to describe it. I think I've got a way to show it here. Intertestamental. So we're not talking Tanakh and we're not talking um, New Testament, so to speak. Okay. There's a period in between that we're going to deal with. All of this literature appears there. I'm going to show you something about that soon, actually. Okay. So, sorry, we got the Melachim, we've done that, and you've got demons on the page too. Now this is going to get a bit weird. Nande, is your mom there?
Yes, she is.
I don't know how much the rest of your family is there, so this next part's going to get a bit weird for you guys, and I really want to hear your thoughts as it gets weird. So
How
stay
you?
stay tuned for this one. Okay. Yeah, is writings from the Greek philosophers and the Greek superstitious writers and scientists, whatever. This is from Hesiod, which is one of their respected authors and scholars. When they died, it was as though they were overcome with sleep, and they had all good things for the fruitful earth, for unforced bear them fruit abundantly and without stint. They dwelt in ease and peace upon their lands with many good things, rich in flocks and loved by the blessed gods. But after earth had covered this generation, they are called pure spirits in the Greek, daimones hagnoi, dwelling on the earth and are kindly delivering from harm and guardians of mortal men, for they roam everywhere over the earth, clothed in mist, and keep watch on judgments and cruel deeds, giver of wealth. For this royal right they also received. He's explaining what demons are. Okay, so he's telling you when they die, they were rich in things, and when they die, they become like guardians to men, and they roam the earth and they watch. They can judge cruel deeds and they can give good things. Uh, Yeah, they have power and authority. Now, Nanda, you and your family might already be guessing where I'm going with that. Um, Although the Greeks believed that the daimonos were kindly and helpful, Jews and early Christians had a different view. According to 1 Enoch, there we go back to Enoch, God forbid the spirits of the Nephilim to enter their usual places reserved for the mortal dead. So think about this. When people die, their spirits go into the place of waiting, Sheol, whatever you want to call it. They sleep. We know that. That's the metaphor that we're given. But what happens to these things? Who are the demons? Even the Greek philosophers know this. They are the Nephilim. So think now again, what are Nephilim? They are the sons that were born to the watchers and the women. Will you remember that? Watchers are those princes who came down, or watchers, we call them watchers as well. Daniel uses that term. The offspring, the demigods, the hybrid offspring they have are the Nephilim. David kills Goliath. Goliath's body would eventually rot away. But what about Goliath's spirit? Do you know what Goliath's spirit becomes? Who wants to tell me? Because I've basically just given you the answer. What does Goliath's spirit become?
A demon.
A demon. So if you want to know, remember, we're talking about supernatural beings here. We're now in the lowest class. That's where we are. We've gone to the lowest class, demons. They are literally They are the spirits of the non-human entities that were killed. David killed a lot of them. Israel killed a lot of them, and so that's where demons come from. If you wanted to know, now African ancestors and the heroes of Greece. Nanda, you and your family are about to discover what you have in common with Greek pagans. The word hero has a much different meaning today than it did 2,000 years ago. For us, a hero is a soldier, firefighter, police officer, or a star athlete. To the ancient Greeks, a heros was a dead person who remained powerful in death. So, a dead person who remains powerful in death and was therefore venerated by the living. So, when you venerate a dead person, according to the Greeks, this was a hieros. This is where you get the word hero from. Heroes were believed to be historical persons, watch this, and this is in Greece, often ancestors. Goes further, heroes were expected or feared to show supernatural power after death. Epic heroes were elevated to the status of protector of their cities. Now, I want to get some Black family commentary on this. And then I'll tell you what's going on if it's not clear to you. But you guys, as a Black family who have had direct access and dealings with the things of ancestors, what are you thinking when you see what I'm showing you on the screen coming from Greeks?
Literally speechless. That's the room right now.
Let me
That,
contextualize it for you guys. I'm not saying that you guys copied it from the Greeks because you had no access to the Greeks. What I'm telling you is when your ancestors and the Greeks' ancestors were at Babel, you had the
it,
same kind of watchers, you had the same fallen princes tell the same lies to you,
yeah,
which they obviously agreed on when they did it, which is not all that amazing to conceptualize. And then all that happened is when you were forced to be scattered, your ancestors were forced to be scattered, they just respectfully, out of good intention, no doubt, kept the same lies alive, not knowing that they were being lied to, of course. That should make your world feel a lot bigger and a lot smaller simultaneously right now. And I just had to put that in because I knew we're going to have a Black family online with us that can feel this more real than anyone else, because generally white people, Europeans, have so lost their pagan ancestry that it's not as easy to make the direct connection as is the case with either like Greek, or if you go to the South America, the Mexicans with the Inca, or Black tribes on the African continent. They tend
yeah,
to have preserved more ancient connection than the Europeans. The Europeans have gone through so many phases already, and that's the only reason why Europeans don't as easily. Although I'm actually wrong, I should say this, Dad. If you and Mom talk to Tom, and I know Tom has spoken before, Tom can comfortably tell quite easily the history of Santa Claus and the pagan origins that comes from Germany, right? Because I've heard him talk about that. So he's actually evidence of even how some small Greek, German people still hold on to it. And yes, the Norse, the Dutch, certain elements of the Dutch, but more generally, Europeans that flow through Western culture. Maybe that's the better way to put it. Europeans that have processed through Western culture have lost their connection to their pagan history. Any thoughts on this?
Me and my dad now were just saying he's a bit too far away, so he won't be able to speak on the mic. But this is a great tool of evangelizing to Black people with.
I'd say so.
It is exceptional. We were me, and I would love to hear what like Duma and Lucy have to say because I'm sure this is stuff we've been talking on in the Messianic group, our own family group, and I was telling them like because we were talking about just our own culture and people like who come out and all that thing. And one thing I was doing while I was doing some research, Table Mountain is believed to be where the Xhosa is known to be that mythical king, the first king of the tribes now known as Xhosa, who got his royal priest office from this god named Kamate at Table Mountain, which again would probably be some whatever prince we left with,
Right.
yeah, in Babel, just repeating the lie and just revamping it.
I think it's very interesting, and that's going to be pertinent when we move forward. You're going to see something that's going to come up that's going to make your Table Mountain statement even more incredible. Okay, why do we not read anything about demons in the Tanakh? It's a fair question because you don't really read about it like you do in the Gospels and that. And here's the reason why. So we've got the Tanakh, I've put it on the one side. Now I've got Second Temple period. This is what I was talking about now, that Enoch, all of these books, all of these writings fall part of the Second Temple literature. Okay. And there's the date for you, not that you have to do much with that date, but 530 BC all the way to 70 AD, we'd call like the intertestamental period, or it is the Second Temple period. We can call it that too. So it's quite a fair chunk of history. And in this period of time, this is when Jesus is born to and lives his life out. Here's what's interesting. During this period of time, that obviously now includes the beginning of Jesus' sect within Judaism, which is obviously called People of the Way. Isn't it interesting that during that period of time, not in the Tanakh, in the Second Temple era of writing, which is a different era of writing at least, we have the most documented content on supernatural things. So you should get excited and smile to think, so Darren, are you telling me Jesus is born at a time when the most supernatural activity is happening between heaven and earth, like they overlapping? And the answer would, of course, be yes. That's exactly what I'm telling you. In fact, he's born right after all of that intense, incredible literature is written. Enoch being one of them, Jubilees being another one, Jasher being another one, which you might not appreciate because you haven't been told to appreciate them. But like I'm going to say to you again, all of those books, all of those writings, Dead Sea Scrolls, were written just before, and well, not just before, generations, but also just before Jesus. Isn't it interesting the timing of Jesus being born, that all of that gets written, that explains all these angels and all of this stuff and these amazing experiences happen? Sounds to me like it's a deliberate intention by God to do it this way. So keep that in mind. Now, why aren't demons spoken about so often in that period? I'm going to give you a simple answer. I'm not going to try and expound too much on it now. Here's the simple answer. If those Nephilim are living and it's taking all of the process of the Old Testament to fight them and to kill them, can you understand why you don't see a lot about demons in the Tanakh? It's because they were being slaughtered in that period. But after that period, when that kind of ends, the last prophet speaks in a way, now this whole other period opens up where these demons are starting to be active now, and people are writing about them, and there's prophets seeing things, and there's visions, and there's supernatural events between heaven and earth. So logically, I'm not going to see as much of demonic activity in the Tanakh as I'm going to find by the Second Temple period. That just makes good sense. Unfortunately, we have to come to another Christian problem now, and they say, I only read the Bible. Now, I'm going to tell you why that's absolute nonsense for any Christian. If they only read the Bible, then they shouldn't be going to church and listening to a pastor speak. If they only read the Bible, Kum books shouldn't be around for as long as it is. Having books of all these really good looking guys, T.D. Jakes and Miles Monroe, who's not with us anymore, obviously, and Joel Osteen. Christians don't only just read the Bible. So they're absolute either totally demented when they say that, or they are just outright lying. But they do read extra biblical text. Anytime you pick up a book of your favorite Christian author, you are in fact not only reading the Bible. And I'm saying that because this idea that you can't read Enoch and all that, that's absolute nonsense. But I just wanted to prove that Christians don't even hold to their own comment when they say that. Next thought. God amongst the gods. We saw in that divine council statement that God takes up a seat amongst the divine council. That's a bit sounds odd, like what's going on here. Psalm 82, verse 1, God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. So there's a clear scripture. That's the one that Michael Isaac got the shock of his life from. And there's another one, Psalm 82, verse 6 and 7. I said, you are gods, sons of the Most High. So note that word that describes God, Most High, sons of the Most High. All of you, nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. Now, what is this? Obviously, a prophetic statement of. It's a judgment against the princes who fell. It's a judgment against the watchers. But what's the point I want you to see? You are gods. And what else are they? They are sons of who? The Most High. What does the Most High imply? He is above everything else. So he's securely in place, but doesn't mean there aren't beneath him as well. So again, I want to point out, I only read the Bible because to understand more of Psalm and that Psalm 82 and all of that, you actually have to go and read the extra biblical stuff. And here's the other thing that Christians will often say: the New Testament is new. That's new things happening. Jesus does new things, and this is all new. No, actually, not at all. The Gospels are based on these extra biblical texts. The Gospels are based on what I've just showed you in Psalms. So it's not that new. And again, you can't only be reading the Bible effectively. So the next one, let's talk about thrones. And I'm just going to give quick evidences here. We're not going to try and study this now. Daniel 7, verse 9. As I looked, thrones were placed. Now, you should know that from Revelation already, right? There's thrones, there's 24 elders, you're seeing all this stuff. So again, there's these classes of beings. They're not just one class. The council, we've already basically spoken about the idea of the divine council. Now, I want to show you something interesting that I think is really going to blow your mind a bit here. I just want to give you an overview to show you how many times the council features in prominent pieces of history in scripture. And then I'm going to show you a handful of prophets that mention them. We're not going to discuss them. You can write down the references or you can watch the video. I just want you to see how often the divine council actually appears. So at creation, God speaks to the divine council to say, let's make man in our image. God wasn't talking to himself or Jesus or the Spirit. He was saying to the divine council, let us make man in our image. For he told you angels came before us. They are the sons of God before we created. So logically, they outrank us in that way. At Babel, God says, let's go down and confuse their language. And believe it or not, do you know that Moses received the Ten Commandments and the law from angels that came to him at Mount Sinai? It's another thing you might not have known. Okay, so let's look at some of the prophets. Isaiah 6, you can write these down and go check it for yourself. Jeremiah 23, and these are not exclusive. These are just hand-picked ones that I've just grabbed. Ezekiel 1, Daniel 7, Psalm 82, and Revelation 4 to 6. So these are, you're looking at a snapshot of how many times the divine councils mentioned. And this should be a good kind of overwhelming to say, oh my word, I need to look into this. How have I not seen this before? Why am I not paying attention to this? And better yet, why are our pastors not teaching us this? We've got some work to do. I had to throw this one in because I think it's so important. Here's the simplest summary of how prophets actually work. And now we're going to get rid of all of the rubbish prophets we have today in a single instance. Guess what you need to prove that you are actually a prophet? It's very easy. You're not going to believe this. And it's in Jeremiah. For who among them has stood in the counsel of the Lord to see and hear his word? Boom. Jeremiah 23:18. Yeah, God is insulting false prophets. And then he makes the rhetorical statement. How many of them have stood in the council to see and hear his word? You know what it means to stand in his council? And again, if we had to do another look at the prophets, I know I've done teachings on the prophets before, maybe we can do another one just from this angle. Do you know when you go and study the prophets, you know what they all experienced? They stood in the midst of the divine council. Isn't that interesting? Now, let's just ironically talk about Bethel again. Jen Johnson sits on the stage and speculates. She says she thinks we're taking God too seriously. She thinks those angels in his presence are texting each other on phones and having farting competitions. Jen Johnson belongs to the biggest charismatic Christian movement on the planet right now, might be the biggest that there ever will be into the future. Does someone who talks like that sound like someone who you think's been into the council room in a vision, even just and experienced that? Not to me. I mean, that's an obvious answer because I don't think they are from God at all. I think Bethel is satanic, quite honestly. So the point is just to show you an extreme reality about this. If you haven't been in the council of the Lord, you haven't like been invited into a divine council meeting, you're not a prophet. Isn't that simple? Do we think anyone that's alive today has been into the council room like that? I'm going with no. Okay, so here's the Christian favorite. I'll tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've had this one said to me. Don't touch God's anointed. Like I tell you, it's so shocking when they say that. But I've added the extra part on as to why you mustn't touch God's anointed for Christians today. The answer is simple. He's giving me compliments. How many prophets have you heard telling individuals that their lives are screwed up and that the church is screwed up and they need to fix, they need to repent, they need to remove their pastor, or they need to study this or fix that? That doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that gets invited or woman that gets invited to church conferences. You know, gets invited? The ones telling everyone that God's about to do a new thing through your church. God's so busy doing a new thing through so many churches, I don't even think he needs Jesus anymore if I listen to all of these clowns. But anyway, I don't want to waste my time talking about them. Just something to think about the Christian problem there. Next, one of our favorite topics, the Moedim or the Moed. Is there more to it? Strap yourself in for this one. I think you're going to find this interesting. I'm about to show you from Leviticus 23 the elements that I've never focused on because we've always focused on showing it about Jesus directly, which is nothing wrong with that, and showing Israel's responsibility. But I want to show you, because remember, what are we saying? There's a history to angels, right? And they were here before us. So what if there's a history that even includes the Moedim relating to angels? Does that make sense to everyone? I hope it does. So what if I can show you there's a history even including the Moedim that relates to angels? Now, remember, what did we say? Genesis 1 to 11. It's the history of the world before the Jews. We're going to go even further back than that history and show you just how important the angels are. And I'll explain why now. So all of this is taken from Leviticus 23. It probably won't look as familiar because it's not the parts we've focused on before, but it's there and I want to show you. But you shall present a food offering to the Lord for 7 days. When you come into the land that I give you and reap its harvest, you shall bring the sheaf of the first fruits. That might indicate which one that is, of your harvest to the priest. Then you shall present a grain offering of new grain to the Lord, and you shall present a food offering to the Lord. It shall be for you time of holy convocation, and you shall afflict yourselves and present a food offering to the Lord. You could probably guess that that's Yom Kippur. When you have gathered in the produce of your land, you shall celebrate the feast of the Lord for 7 days. That obviously would indicate to you that's tabernacles. But the point I want you to see is what's the base level of the Moedim? Agricultural. It's always been agriculture. I've never denied that it's agricultural. We've just obviously looked to find Jesus in it, which is fine. But now we're going to look at a different angle because I want to show you how the angels relate to this. Okay. So here's what I want you to understand. Believe it or not, I'm going to show a slide just now that I'm rushing to get through here now. I'm going to show you a slide just now that's going to show you just an even broader perspective on what from the Second Temple literature, intertestamental period literature that's not in the Bible, speaks about the other responsibilities angels have. And get this, it gives them the power over nature, gives them the power over the sun, moon, and stars, over weather, over lightning, over rains, and logically, what do all of those things relate to? Agriculture, right? So you're going to see that element. So what am I showing you here? If there's agricultural elements to the Moedim, think about it, and the angels have elemental powers, because that's what they are. They can control the elements, whether you believe that or not, they can, given that power by God. And obviously some can use it even though they're not on God's side anymore. Let me give you an example. Who can give me an example in the story of Jesus where supernatural negative elements kick in to try and stop Jesus? Very famous. You learn it in Sunday school. Yeah, I shouldn't say too much more. Who wants to give me an example where nature is almost used to try and kill Jesus?
When
When you,
Jesus was in the wilderness and he was tempted by
Yeah, okay,
everything.
that's one. Kathy, think something else for me. There's another one. There's another example where natural elements are used to try and kill Jesus.
You're referring to when he was in the boat,
That's right.
the
Was that
storm rose.
was that a normal storm? They'd realized something was up, which tells you what? Supernatural entities can affect weather patterns, as nerve-wracking as that might be to you. If that's news to you, go and read Revelation. If you don't think angels can cause natural disasters, go read Revelation. Isaiah 14:12 to 15. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to Sheol, to the far reaches of the pit. Now, just about anyone will tell you that this is a story about Lucifer. Okay, let's say maybe it is. The points that are not looked at, that's what I want to look at tonight, because you know me, I like to be different and difficult. So I'm going to focus on the not so well-known elements. And the first one I want to show you is this reference, Mount of Assembly. What is the word for mount in Hebrew? Har or har. Are you ready for this? Guess what's the word for assembly? Now remember, I need to tell you this. Mount of the assembly would immediately imply the place and the people for the divine council. Keep that in mind. It'll be the place and the people for the divine council. Already we're off to a good start, right? Because if it's har or har, it's the mount of assembly. So who's going to be there? Celestial beings. What's the word in Hebrew for assembly? Would you look at that? Har Moed. Mount of Assembly. Wait. So I thought that was about agriculture, and I thought it's about Jesus. Yes, and yes. Agricultural, because nature has to honor God, and human beings were told to do what with nature? Subdue it, right? And bring the goodness out of it to the glory of God. Which is why when you bring the goodness out of nature, what did you have to do first of all before you enjoyed the nature and what it gave you? You had to bring the offering to God. Do you see how that worked? Someone tell me you're seeing what I'm saying here. Is it making sense to anyone?
For me, Darren, I'm smiling. I'm just, yeah, it's quite something.
That's a great reaction. Pussy, are you with us?
Yes, dear, I'm here.
I'm about to answer your question about Cain being the son of Satan or being whatever that was. Remember that question?
Yes.
Here's a simple answer, and I hope it works for you. Cain understood the agricultural nature of worshipping God. Cain understood that there were supernatural beings. the possibility is good that Cain started listening too much to one of those supernatural beings, not realizing, as his parents should have realized, that they have fallen and are sinful. So that when he made the sacrifices he did, he might have also made them in areas that were actively being possessed by the fallen princes. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Which means either because he already had sold out to them, or he was just too vulnerable to them and he just didn't get his heart in the right place. The reason why he's so associated with something negative, which he obviously is, he becomes a prototype of negativity. So he does become that, a child of, literally we can call the Satans even, actually, or evil. He becomes that, like, poster child. It's not necessarily because he was born of that, because that's mythological and I don't believe that's true. I think he really was, as he's claimed to be in scripture, but he becomes a son of something negative because of his attitude. Does that make sense?
Yes, Darren, that does. So that means that he wasn't actually the literal meaning of having of being the son of what we spoke about last week.
Yeah, from the intercourse with Eve with a fallen angel. No, that wouldn't be true.